You ever watch someone suddenly discover empathy, like they've just unearthed a long-lost sock behind the radiator? That was my husband. One Thursday evening, right in the middle of MasterChef, he pipes up, "Babe, I need to start taking groceries to my aunt. She's not well." And I blinked. Because this is a man who acts personally victimized by having to carry the recycling out, who thinks changing a duvet cover qualifies him for a Pride of Britain award, who once told me with a straight face that emotional labor sounds made up. And now, he's apparently moonlighting as Florence Bloody Nightingale. I tried to be supportive, which, in our marriage, generally means not raising an eyebrow so high it detaches from my face. I even asked which aunt it was. You know, because in the 10 years I've known him, not one has been mentioned, not even at the wedding. He sort of flapped a hand and went, "You've never met her. She's on my dad's side. She's had a rough time. I'll go once a week. Help her out." Right, sure, very noble. Bit weird that this mystery aunt had never even sent a Christmas card. But fine. Who am I to stand in the way of his new charity arc? He even started doing his own shopping, which was new. Normally the man needs GPS and divine intervention to find pasta sauce in Tesco, but now he's practically sprinting through the aisles with a trolley full of essential items. Think scented candles, Sauvignon Blanc, and body lotion for his sick aunt. Because, you know, nothing screams bedridden pensioner like Strawberry, lube, and a multi-pack of Durex. Not that I saw the receipts or anything. Except I did. Oh, I definitely did. Still, I said nothing. Because I'm British, and we don't do confrontation. We do seething silence and muttering. Unbelievable. Under our breath while boiling. The kettle with intent. He'd come home all smug, saying things like, "She's so grateful I came round." And I'd nod, like, "Aw, sweet." Meanwhile, in my head, do you think I'm completely thick or just selectively blind? But I let it ride, because maybe she was ill. Maybe she did need help. And maybe, just maybe, my husband was finally becoming a functioning adult. Spoiler, he wasn't. Before I spill this cup of piping British drama, drop a comment. Was I right to show up uninvited with soup? Or should I have just let him keep shagging his sick aunt in peace? And if you're new, hit subscribe. I ruin lives on this channel daily. So picture it, Sunday afternoon. Rain outside, obviously, and I'm in the kitchen stirring a pan of lentil soup like some tragically underpaid extra in a wartime drama. Hair scraped back, socks mismatched. Passive aggression simmering just beneath the surface like the actual stock. And I think, you know what? I'll be kind. I'll do something nice. Because if my husband can play Meals on Wheels the adultery edition, then surely I can be the caring, nurturing type. Like Mary Bloody Berry, but with more rage and less cardigan. I'll surprise her, his poor fragile aunt, show up with a pot of homemade goodness and a smile so forced it could snap a wine glass. Why? Because I'm a good person. And all right, slightly suspicious. Okay, wildly suspicious. Red flag parade suspicious. But mainly I'm kind. Kind and nosy. A lethal combo. And before you ask, yes, I did consider that maybe this wasn't my place. That maybe I should just trust my husband and go back to pretending he's not the human. Equivalent of a browser with 47 tabs. Open and none of them working properly. But here's the thing. I've got instincts. Spidey senses. Women's intuition. And it was screaming. That sort of low-level internal alarm bell that's not quite, "Call the police," but definitely put on a bra. Something's off. So there I am, chopping carrots like I'm avenging my own murder, convincing myself this is what love looks like. Because nothing says I support you, like ignoring your gut and aggressively pureeing root vegetables for someone you've never met. Also, let's just pause to acknowledge how deranged it is that I'm going full Nigella for a woman whose actual existence I'm still not 100% sure of. I mean, who is she? Where was she during Christmas? Why hasn't she liked a single one of our wedding photos on Facebook? Oh, right, because she doesn't exist. Or so I thought. But we'll get there. Anyway, as I'm ladling the soup into a flask, like it's some sort of peace offering/spying prop, my husband walks in. "What's that?" he asks, glancing at the soup like it personally offended him. "I thought I'd drop this round to your aunt," I say, all sweet and innocent, like I haven't been mentally building a corkboard of red string theories for the past 3 days. He freezes. "You don't have to do that," he blurts. Too quick, too. Panicked. She's not really up for visitors. She's very private. Yes, the classic mysterious recluse aunt trope. Probably sleeps in a coffin and hisses at sunlight. She doesn't even know you," he adds. like I'm the unhinged one here. Right, because the absolute cheek of me, trying to feed soup to an elderly woman I'm married into. How dare I offer compassion? What a monster. At that point, I had a choice. Option A, trust him. Smile, nod, pour the soup back into the saucepan. Of emotional denial. Option B, go full suburban spy and deliver it anyway. And I don't know if it was the lack of serotonin or just the sheer audacity of his face. But I picked B, because if there was an aunt, she'd appreciate the soup. And if there wasn't, well, then I'd have something far juicier to stir than lentils. So I tell him, very casually, as casually as you can when you're seething beneath your skin and ladling lentils with the same energy most people reserve for strangling a cushion in therapy. I thought I'd drop the soup off to your aunt myself, I say, smile glued to my face like a woman on the brink. Surprise her, be nice. Now, I've seen my husband panic before. Like the time I caught him trying to DIY the Wi-Fi router with a fork. Or when I asked what my mom got for her birthday and he said, "Wasn't it that red thing?" But this was a different breed of panic. This was full-on, wide-eyed, nostrils flaring. Oh the walls are closing in panic. He goes still, like a fox on the motorway. Then blurts out, she's a bit fragile right now. Fragile. Right. Like a tea set. Or British masculinity. Or his story. She might not want visitors, he says, voice wobbling like the lies trying to escape mid-sentence. I blinked. Not even the person who made her a whole pot of soup? Yeah, but she's private, he adds, doubling down like a man who thinks lying louder makes it truer. She doesn't do well with unexpected company. It stresses her out, right? Because nothing helps recovery from whatever vague illness. She apparently has like complete social isolation and a diet of candlelit, Sauvignon Blanc and lies. Now, here's where a normal, stable person might pause and think, maybe he's right. Maybe she's unwell. Maybe this is a boundary thing. But I've met my husband. This is a man who once asked if you could microwave grapes. His brain is not exactly a trusted source. So when he gave me that wounded look, all wide eyes and half-baked concern, like I was the unreasonable one for wanting to meet his invisible aunt, I thought, yeah, we're past weird now. We're elbow deep in bollocks. Also, let's be real. If I was actually overstepping, he'd have just said, let me ask her first. Or that's kind. But she's asleep. Not gone full MI5 in the kitchen like I'd just threatened national security with a flask of blended vegetables. And let's talk logistics for a second, shall we? He's apparently been seeing this woman every week, bringing her bags of food, talking to her, looking after her. And in all that time, not once has she said, oh, send my love to your wife. Or thanks for the groceries, tell her she's lovely. Nothing. Either she's an emotionally stunted hermit with the social range of a wet sponge, or, and hear me out, she's not his bloody aunt. I didn't say that out loud, obviously. Not yet. Instead, I nodded, smiled, said, of course, love. I wouldn't want to overwhelm her. Because the British solution to emotional betrayal is always the same. Politeness, pettiness, and planning something deeply unhinged with a very calm tone of voice. So I gave him the soup, let him believe I was backing off. And then I did what every mentally stable woman does when her husband acts squirrely about a phantom aunt. I waited until he left the house, and I drove to the address myself. So, there I am, soup in hand, lip gloss on, rage just barely simmering beneath the surface, like a casserole of suppressed dignity. Because you know what? I may be many things. Emotionally frayed, spiritually dehydrated, possibly allergic to stability, but I'm not stupid. He thought I'd let it go, that I'd accept she's a bit fragile as gospel truth and just trot off to stir something else. Maybe my own delusion. But no, I did what any rational, betrayed woman with a suspicious casserole and access to Google Maps would do. I showed up, and let me tell you, the minute I pulled onto that street I knew. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and instantly forget why you're there, but also feel like you're about to find your own funeral? Yeah, that. Because this wasn't a granny flat. This wasn't your classic curtain-twitching, pensioner's bungalow, with faded hanging baskets, and a welcome mat that's seen things. This was a 2-bedroom new build. Clean bricks, shiny door, no personality whatsoever. It screamed, IKEA catalog shag pad, not oh dear, I've fallen and I can't get up. And let's be honest, no one elderly lives in a place, with keyless entry and a Skyglass telemount pre-installed. No trifle dishes in the window, no wind chimes, not even a whiff of lavender or digestive biscuits. I sat in the car, clutching my Tupperware like it was some kind of emotional security blanket, and just stared. Not gonna lie, part of me hoped it was an old lady, that she'd open the door in a fluffy dressing gown, dribble a bit, say, "Oh bless you, love," and all this would dissolve into a cloud of awkward guilt and lentils. But another part of me, the slightly unhinged, mentally exhausted part, knew damn well there was no frail aunt behind that door. There was probably a scented candle named after a personality trait, and someone who waxes religiously. Still, I got out. Because if I didn't see it for myself, I'd lie awake all night making up worse stories in my head. Approaching the door felt weirdly cinematic, like one of those slow-motion shots in a BBC drama where the music goes all eerie and you just know someone's about to get emotionally obliterated. Spoiler, it was me. I knock, no answer. I knock again. Still nothing. And then, in the most idiotically British move I've ever made, I try the handle. It opens, because of course it does. Because people having affairs apparently don't lock doors. They just rely on the pure audacity of it all to keep intruders out. And that's when I stepped inside. And mates, listen, it smelt like vanilla and betrayal. I knock. Once, twice, nothing. Silence, which would be normal. If the woman inside was, say, deaf, asleep, or an actual aunt recovering from an actual illness. But no, instead, the house gave off this quiet hum. Like the walls themselves were whispering, "Don't come in, babe. You're about to see something that'll have you emotionally eating a full Viennetta in your car." Now, this is the bit in every horror film where the woman should leave. She should turn around, get back in her car, and spend the rest of her life writing furious diary entries in all caps. But no, I'm British, which means I apologized to the door, then tried the handle like an absolute lunatic with a craving for trauma. And of course, it opened. Because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't a man having a secret, weekly rendezvous in a rental keep the door unlocked? I mean, locking it would imply shame, or, heaven forbid, basic spatial awareness. So I stepped inside. And let me tell you, I was ready for a whiff of mildew, mobility aids, maybe a shriveled potted plant named Maureen in the corner. What I got was jazz. Actual jazz. That's smooth. We've just lit a candle in the bath and thrown caution to the wind. Type jazz. The kind of music that practically moans at you. I froze. The air smelt like vanilla and lust. Candles were flickering like we were about to hold a seance for my marriage. 2 wine glasses on the counter, half full. Or half empty, depending on whether you're an optimist or just me. A bottle of Sauvignon Blanc sweating condensation like it knew it had been used for evil. And then I saw it. On the floor, between the hallway and what I can only assume was the bedroom of broken dreams. A black lacy bra, just lying there, mocking me, like some tragic breadcrumb in a trail of betrayal. It was delicate, strappy, the kind of lingerie that says, "I don't pay council tax and I definitely wax my toes." And I stood there, in my M&S jumper and emotional devastation, just staring. Because what do you do in that moment? Scream, cry, phone a mate and say, "You'll never believe what I'm looking at right now"? No, you do what every emotionally knackered British woman does when the walls of her marriage come crashing down over a 999 candle from TK Maxx. You freeze. You grip your Tupperware like it might stop your soul escaping your body. And you just look at the wine, the candles, the bra, the fake sick aunt fantasy unraveled in front of you like a tragic, scented lacy joke. And somewhere, buried deep beneath the numbness and rage, you think, well, at least I made soup. So I'm stood there, motionless, soupless, blinking at the altar of deceit like, I've just walked into a Poundland version of a Netflix affair drama, except it's not sexy. It's not thrilling. It's just me, alone in a stranger's rental, mentally combusting next to a Primark candle and a lacy underwire. But, because my brain is British and broken, it tries to reason with it. Maybe, I think, genuinely in that moment, maybe it's a live-in carer. A young one, stylish, very liberated. Sure, because nothing screams support worker like a size 6 push-up. Bra discarded next to a bottle of Chardonnay and a tube of lip gloss called Lusty Berry. And then, I look up at the fridge, and everything inside me just shrivels. It's one of those magnetic photo frames. You know the ones. All cutesy and kitsch, probably from Etsy, or somewhere equally smug. And in it, him, my husband, shirtless, shirtless, and smiling like he's just discovered fire and thinks he invented it. Next to him, a woman, blonde, tanned, wearing, Well, not much. Her outfit was less clothing and more suggestion. Like someone just described a dress to her once, and she gave it a go with a belt and a prayer. She's perched on his lap like a trophy with Botox, and he's holding her like he just won the lottery and doesn't realize it's fake. And the caption? Oh, the caption. Scrawled in pink glitter gel pen, just to make me want to scream into a cushion. My king. Right. My king. Not my nephew. Not thanks for the groceries, sweetie. Not even a generic friends forever. That might have kept the delusion going a bit longer. No, my bloody king. At that point, my soul left my body, hovered near the ceiling, and just muttered, told you so. I stood there like a woman trapped in a little sponsored fever dream, realizing I'd spent the last 3 weeks blending carrots for a man who was out here role-playing as royalty in someone else's council tax bracket. And the worst part? I still had the soup, still bloody holding it, like some tragic symbol of loyalty no one asked for. So I did what any shattered, humiliated, mentally spiraling woman would do in that moment. I put the soup down gently next to the wine glasses, because I may be emotionally destroyed, but I was raised right, and you don't waste soup. And then I walked out, because if I stayed even a second longer, I might have set the place on fire with my shame alone. Right, so I didn't scream. I didn't slam doors or throw cutlery like you see in the dramas. No, that's not how we British do emotional nuclear warfare. We simmer, we stew. We pour a cuppa and wait for the perfect moment to unleash the passive-aggressive beast. So I waited, like a cat stalking the laser pointer of truth. I cooked dinner, made the kind of meal that screams, I'm trying, but whispers, you're a lying git. You know, spaghetti bolognese. Nothing fancy, just the classic I'm still human meal. Set the table with military precision. Knife here, fork there, napkin folded like a flag of surrender. When he got home, he was the picture of smugness, like a man who thinks he's pulled off the greatest heist in the history of marriage. He sat down and started chewing, telling me his usual bedtime stories about Auntie being resting. Resting, he said, with all the sincerity of a politician promising a better future. And I listened, nodded along, let the spaghetti soak in. Then, and this is the part where the British passive-aggressive charm truly shines, I asked, sweet as custard, was she resting when you took that topless photo by her fridge? Cue the choking, actual choking. He went from I'm a saint to gargling fool faster than you can say. Sunday roast disaster. I watched him sputter like a faulty kettle, red-faced and desperate, trying to come up with a lie that didn't sound like it was written by a drunk toddler. I just sat back, fork in hand, eyes steady and unimpressed, because by now I wasn't angry anymore, I was entertained. That was my moment, the quiet after the storm, where I realized sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting or tears. It's cold, calculated silence with a side of soup. And somewhere in the background, the wine glasses from Auntie's place seemed to clink, as if toasting the chaos I'd just uncovered. All right, buckle up, because this is the part where the mask slips and the full cringe fest comes out to play. So after dinner, after the choking episode, after me silently plotting how to survive the next decade without losing my mind, I pressed him. And by pressed, I mean cornered him like a rat in the kind of thriller where the audience knows the punchline, but the poor sawed-on screen hasn't got a clue yet. I asked, no, demanded the truth. No more Auntie's resting nonsense, no more vague she's private bollocks, just the cold hard facts. And guess what? Turns out, this aunt was less Victorian relative and more a 28-year-old gym enthusiast named Chloe. Yep, Chloe, who, surprise, surprise, had an allergy. Not to dust or pollen, mind you. Nope, to commitment. Apparently, weekly grocery runs were just a polite cover for weekly rendezvous. Romantic ones, in case the suspense wasn't unbearable enough. With a side of betrayal and, if you're keeping score, a whole lot of Tesco club card points. I mean, how British is that? Cheating, but make it economical. She wasn't frail or fragile. She wasn't even remotely in need of sympathy. She was just young, fit, and apparently better at hiding this whole thing than my husband is at adulting. There I was, standing in my kitchen, armed with nothing but a pot of soup and a lifetime supply of disbelief, while he sat there trying to convince me this wasn't a full-on disaster, but just complicated. Complicated? Love, if this were complicated, I'd be sitting on a beach sipping pina coladas instead of interrogating my husband about his imaginary relative. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. I wanted to throw the soup at him. But I remembered I'm not that unreasonable. So instead, I said, dry as a biscuit left out in the rain. Thanks for the honesty. And next time, maybe skip the fiction and go straight to the documentaries. And just like that, the anti-myth was officially dead, along with whatever shred of trust I'd naively hoarded in the back of my head. So after digesting the whole 28-year-old gym bunny named Chloe debacle, and believe me, the mental indigestion was real, I made a decision. No more drama, no more tears, no more pretending that my husband's imaginary aunt was anything but a creative euphemism for betrayal. I packed my things. Well, correction. I packed his things. Because honestly, if he thought he was taking the soup with him, he was very much mistaken. I gathered his socks, his trainers that smell like a swamp, and a baffling collection of Powerade bottles that even a marathon runner would find excessive. Wrapped it all up in the kind of precision only a woman who's cried in the shower can master. And then, with the serenity of a woman who's just realized the only thing she's missing in life is peace and maybe a decent takeaway, I marched to Chloe's place, dropped the bag on her doorstep like the ceremonial offering of a Greek tragedy, and left a post-it note. Oh, the post-it note. Bright pink. Stuck on with the kind of smug satisfaction you only get from passive-aggressive art. He's all yours. May your bras remain on the floor forever. I didn't stick around for a thank you. No, sir. I kept the soup. Because that soup wasn't just soup. It was years of emotional labor. Hours of simmering hope. A pot of I cared more than you deserved, ladled into one final act of defiance. And I tell you, that soup tasted better than any victory. The kettle boiled faster when I got home. I poured myself a cuppa, took a deep breath, and for the first time in what felt like forever, smiled without a hint of bitterness. Because sometimes the best way to win is to walk away, and maybe send a strongly worded text the next day. Right, let's not beat around the bush here. People will lie, even when their stories are so laughably awful you want to clutch your tea and cry. Like, honestly, I was holding the bloody spoon they were feeding me there, swith, and somehow still swallowed the whole thing. But here's the kicker. Karma has a wicked, twisted sense of humor. And sometimes, it tastes exactly like homemade lentil soup mixed with betrayal and a side of regret. That soup? Not just a metaphor, folks. It was literal proof that I gave more of a damn than was strictly necessary. And maybe that's the real lesson. Caring isn't always a virtue, when the other party's a professional fantasist with questionable taste in women. Also, a quick PSA. Never trust a man who suddenly develops a passion for volunteering. It's either a midlife crisis, an affair, or, quite often, a messy cocktail of both. Because nothing says, I'm desperately trying to find meaning, like suddenly delivering groceries, to a sick aunt who doesn't exist. And finally, the hard truth. Life doesn't always make sense. Sometimes, the people you thought were your rock turn out to be a pile of damp kindling, and all you can do is light your own fire and keep warm. So, to anyone out there stirring soup for someone, who's busy playing house with someone else's laundry, keep your chin up, laugh at the madness, and maybe, just maybe, keep a spare bra handy, because the world, it's a bloody circus, and we're all just trying not to trip over the clowns.